A 1,000-year-old sanctuary of Eastern Slavic Christianity is in ashes, igniting an explosive information war on the eve of the G7 summit. As the iconic Assumption Cathedral of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra burned after a massive air raid, French President Emmanuel Macron and Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot instantly condemned Moscow. The Kremlin has hit back with fury. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova officially designated the Western accusations a crude, synchronized fake, explicitly engineered to manipulate global opinion before world leaders meet in France.
The West, together with the Kiev regime, has cooked up yet another falsification, a real fake. French President Emmanuel Macron and Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot made scathing comments about the fire at the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has completely upended the technical narrative, presenting a chilling alternative for the cathedral's destruction. Moscow asserts its high-precision strikes exclusively targeted military factories, claiming the historic monastery was actually hit by a malfunctioning US-supplied Patriot air defense missile. Zakharova expanded the diplomatic assault, tearing into what she called systemic Western hypocrisy regarding European religious freedom. Russia claims the monastery's coveted UNESCO World Heritage status was deliberately ignored by the West until the fire could be weaponized as a geopolitical blunt instrument against Moscow.
Meanwhile, in recent years, European politicians have not said a single word about the persecution of the canonical Orthodox Church in Ukraine by the Zelensky regime, nor about attempts to seize control of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra through physical and psychological pressure. Nor has anyone in the West shown concern for the site's UNESCO World Heritage status.
The rhetorical warfare turned deeply personal, as Moscow accused European leaders of an asymmetric moral double standard concerning human lives. Zakharova pointedly attacked Paris officialdom for maintaining absolute silence over a string of bloody civilian casualties in Russian-controlled territories. Russia emphasized that not a single word of condolence was offered after a recent devastating strike on a student college dormitory in Starobelsk that left multiple civilians dead, including children.
There has also been no expression of condolences regarding the numerous victims of alleged terrorist attacks by the Kiev authorities against civilians in Russian regions, including those killed by the armed forces of Ukraine in Starobelsk. Not a single word in recent weeks about the slain children in Starobelsk has been said in Paris officialdom.
Finally, Moscow connected the information standoff to the loss of irreplaceable global heritage, citing a recent strike on the Sevastopol Defense Museum in Crimea. Zakharova concluded that instead of answering for the destruction of European art or civilian casualties, French leadership fabricated an unverified narrative to obscure their own complicity in a deepening global catastrophe. A nearly 1,000-year-old monastery damaged, and Russia's defense ministry says the weapon responsible wasn't even Russian. According to Moscow, buildings at Kiev-Pechersk Lavra were struck by a US-produced Patriot missile, fired by Ukraine's own air defense system, possibly with an expired shelf life that caused it to malfunction mid-flight. One of Orthodox Christianity's most sacred sites, damaged not by an enemy strike, but by Western-supplied hardware, sitting in Ukrainian hands.
The armed forces of the Russian Federation do not plan or conduct strikes against civilian infrastructure facilities. According to confirmed data, buildings of the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra was hit by a missile from an American Patriot air defense system. One possible reason for the malfunction of this system could be that Western countries had supplied the Kiev regime with missiles that had expired.
So what was Moscow targeting that night? The Kiev radar plant. According to the ministry, this facility develops and manufactures components for long-range unmanned aerial vehicles and handles production and repair of military radar systems, a defense industrial target, not a monastery. The contrast is stark. A declared military target, a radar and drone component plant tied to Ukraine's long-range weapons production on one side, a UNESCO heritage site struck by a missile Moscow says wasn't even theirs on the other. The question now hangs over Kyiv and its Western backers. If a Patriot missile malfunctioned over one of Christianity's holiest grounds, whose weapon and whose responsibility was that? Patriot batteries deployed across Ukraine depend on a steady supply of interceptors, and expired stock raises serious questions about quality control on weapons funneled into a war zone. Scrutiny that Moscow's framing places squarely on the supply chain, not on its own targeting. The Kremlin's message is consistent. Its forces strike defense industry, not civilian sites. What happened at Kiev-Pechersk Lavra, according to Moscow, was a monastery damaged by Ukraine's own expired Patriot, not a Russian strike.